Well. Let's, welcome back to another saga of One Piece. This time I forced Knick-Knack to read, the Sky Island saga. So this is, in the manga, this consists of, the Jaya arc and the Skypiea arc, chapters 218 to 302. So it's actually under 100 chapters, with like 90 something or 80 something.
Yeah, it's our shortest saga.
It's the shortest so far in terms of reading. In the anime, it actually includes 3 different filler arcs. Goat Island, Ruluka, and G8. However, you did not have to deal with any of those, be it as you were reading just the manga. And on that note, the manga spans 9 volumes, of which I actually have all of them here to kind of use as a prop, right? Because we did both reread this on the Shonen Jump app, I believe, right? Because that's where I reread this because I wasn't home. But I do actually, I have most of the first 60 volumes. I'm missing a few, so I can't always have like the entire arc, but I do have the entire 9-volume arc of Skypiea. So starting, volume 24 and so on, with all the different cover arts and stuff, which are interesting. I mean, the cover arts are fun. You do get to see those in the Viz app, thank God, because some of them are interesting. Our favorite character, of course, it's NL. He was NL. Favorite, least favorite, who knows? Who could say? Certainly not me. So I am, I feel like I'm really curious what you think, but I feel like I should get it out of the way. I think I mentioned it last time. Skypiea has consistently been one of my least favorite arcs in One Piece. So I have seen the anime, obviously. I'm caught up in the anime and manga. So I've watched this and I've read it, but I actually had not reread the entirety of Sky Island since the first time I read it, when I was first reading One Piece, probably back in like 2015, 2016, and I certainly haven't rewatched it since I watched it for the first time. It is one of 2 arcs that I just absolutely, 2 sagas that I just don't rewatch, right? I just don't, because I don't like them very much. Or at least it's always been my belief that I didn't like them. And I think, at least for me, I certainly don't feel as bad about this arc now as I did perhaps when I first read it. But it's still definitely not a favorite of mine. I know a lot of people really like this arc because of like all the Enel memes. So there's a lot of Enel memes around on the internet. It was a thing back in the day. And it's still something where if you bring up Enel to a lot of One Piece fans, they can whip out probably like 100 memes and jokes based on this character. He's actually quite influential in sort of like the online culture of One Piece and like fan edits and stuff.
I never would have guessed.
Yeah. Wait, like sarcasm or not?
One Piece has a lot of like ridiculous over the top characters.
Well, Enel's a big one, right? And so I think now I appreciated more as I was reading the lore drops and the characters we get to see that come back in later arcs as major characters, or that we've already seen. Like we got like a Buggy and Alvida interlude. We met Blackbeard. We saw Ace again. We saw Shanks. We saw the Whitebeard crew. We saw Don Quixote Doflamingo and Kuma and Mihawk at the Warlords meeting. We saw the five whatchamacallits of the world government. So I think this arc has more peppered crumbs than I remember it having.
And those crumbs were the most interesting part.
I kind of agree on that, because those crumbs are the ones that for me are like nostalgic and trigger like more for me. Like I see Doflamingo and I'm like, oh my god, my favorite villain, or I see Ace and I'm like, I love you, Ace, and I forget that I kind of the way that Blackbeard is first introduced in Jaya, he's kind of great. Like Blackbeard's first introduction here, I mean, it's a very funny interaction. Mm-hmm. And it's one where he's like, he's an idiot. Dreams are real. It's kind of very positive. So it's mixed feelings, but happy feelings about all the things that it references. The arc itself, though, I still don't think I love Jaya or Skypiea.
I like Jaya more than Skypiea because I feel like Jaya was promising a lot, but then Skypiea just didn't deliver for me.
Well, Jaya was quite short, so basically they go to the equivalent of like Tortuga, right? Mocktown. And in Mocktown, a lawless pirate town, and we meet Bellamy the hyena, right? And Nolan the liar's descendant, essentially, is what we deal with in Jaya.
There was one part of Jaya I really liked, and that's
which part?
When they're like they're like Luffy's a nothing pirate. That bounty is a lie. Then he shows up and just like destroys.
Oh, beats the shit out of Bellamy?
Yeah, and it's just like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, we see Luffy often as the underdog, but realistically, he keeps fighting like bigger and bigger and bigger threats.
Yeah.
He's like, there's a lot of what we're not seeing are these pirates that are like nothing compared to Luffy that also cross the Grand Line.
Yeah, I mean, and Bellamy is arguably a big name, you know, for people on the Grand Line. I mean, these people are like, oh my god, I'm Bellamy the hyena, I'm Captain the Grappler, etc. I mean, these are people with bounties. They earned their name. Some of them certainly are from the Grand Line, but Bellamy and his crew are North Blue natives, and that's why they know the story of Nolan the liar. Yeah.
But like, Luffy's no joke either at this point. It's a good. This is like probably the moment I like. This and like a couple moments in Alabasta, like, are probably some of my favorite Luffy moments. Because I've never been a fan of Luffy as a character.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably why I didn't mind Jaya as much, because Jaya felt like a good small arc.
Well, also, I guess the other major thing is that with the beginning of this arc, Robin joins the crew officially. So Robin says, you've destroyed essentially my purpose for living, so now you have to provide the purpose. And everyone's like, oh god, don't give in to her. And then one by one, they all give in via bribery, except for Zoro. Zoro's the only one who ends up still being, as is his right as first mate, to be suspicious and careful about people joining the crew. It makes sense. And Robin kind of continues to be an enigma through this arc. I mean, she kind of disappears off sometimes. She's an archaeologist. I love Robin for a lot of reasons. Her being an archaeologist is one of them. It is like one of my greatest regrets that I actually don't have any Robin figures currently. I've been meaning to get a few. Because there's a couple nice ones that aren't too expensive, like well within my budget. And I just have not had the time to get them.
Shame on you, Miss Anthropology.
Archaeology, too. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, we get a new crew member as well in the beginning of Jaya. And she actually does do quite a bit through the Jaya section. I mean, when it comes to do with Sky Island, because she's the one who kind of tells them about, the ship that falls down upon them. She's the one who helps suss out what happened. She knows about the log post pointing up being towards the Sky Island.
The intrigue of the Sky Island was very well done for me.
Especially with dropping the 200-year-old ship on top of them. Fascinating.
Things kind of fall off as, I can even identify the exact moment things start falling off is right after you find out why the ship fell from Sky High.
Yeah.
The last interesting thing for me in the Sky Island arc was finding out the meaning behind exiling to the clouds.
Yeah.
And after that, it's just I think some of it was broken up by a few scenes, and there were some of the crumbs were scattered in the middle here. But was that just a really long fight scene?
Yeah, essentially, as soon as they go to Upper Yard, which happens pretty fast, you've essentially got them traversing through Upper Yard to eventually meet Enel. And in some ways, it's kind of like, if you remember the S-Class exams in Fairy Tail, it's very much like, enter and you immediately get into fights, and then you just have to fight your way to the top and then fight against Enel. Yeah, it's not all against Enel, but you do, and it is largely a fight arc because you fight his vassals and then you fight him.
And for the amount of intrigue and world building they started trying to build between Jaya and the start of Sky Island, where they're this is these are the rules, and this is the punishment for, right? You do a lot of world building early on. And it's like this completely separate area from the typical like Grand Line ocean setting.
Yeah, like different currency, different like law enforcement.
So it's just especially disappointing that we spend the vast majority of this arc punching the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
Instead of really fleshing out the setting more.
Especially after finding out like dial technology, because dial technology is a really integral part of the show going forward, you know? So it's just kind of disappointing.
And those few times they do sort of slow down even a little bit, like for some of the Robin scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I was fine with like the interlude sections where you cut to like other pirates away from this conflict, because I can distinguish those. The Robin scenes, though, sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm out of a fight scene, but because it takes me so long to transition out of that mindset, it feels like it was going like, this is a weird saying. It was like going in one eye and out the other.
Yeah, I think the thing that I think I really took away from most in this arc is those little crumbs and cutaways. And then I liked the deal with the poneglyph towards the end, right? Like, I like this kind of thing about the poneglyph and these, like, ancient civilizations and such. Like, it's nice to immediately incorporate Robin and what she can bring to the crew.
Yeah.
Like, that was nice because you kind of think, well, why does a pirate crew need an archaeologist? Like, that doesn't feel like it tracks at all, but then we immediately get some, like, you know, real application, which is nice.
But there's a problem when Luffy starts fighting a giant snake in one chapter, and then 30 chapters later it finally pays off.
Yeah, and also, it's a little funny, because a lot of people make the joke, and this is true in sort of One Piece lore, is that, like, Enel is not a slouch, right? Enel's powers are insanely strong. He's made of lightning. What lightning can do to the human body is frightening. This man, like, he is a god for all intents and purposes. He just happens to be fighting a rubber man, which makes it a little bit less effective.
Just a tiny bit.
Like, it's really funny because this fight is, like, uniquely good for just Luffy. Whereas our last major fight against Crocodile was kind of uniquely bad for Luffy, this is, like, the best fight Luffy's ever gonna get is rubber versus electricity. So it's a lot of the jokes in the fandom are surrounding that because Enel probably would body like 90% of the rest of the characters in One Piece.
And he kind of does in a lot of this, like some of this part.
But there's Luffy. Like, Enel could easily body the entire rest of the crew, right? Zoro, everyone. But then there's Luffy, who his powers don't really work on. It's a meme. The one person. It's funny.
Just a bit.
Yeah. So that's why there's a lot of memes about Enel that go around. Because he's really kind of underutilized.
Have lightning powers in One Piece, a world of water. Wow, this is such a great power to have. Protagonist
Sky
is made of
Island.
rubber.
Yeah, and you're on a sky island away from water. It doesn't... The math is not mathing. Enel could be so much more powerful anywhere else and in any other situation.
He just needs to not be in Sky Island, and he needs to not be in the main story. He needs to be in a spinoff.
Well, and remember, canonically, a lot of our villains come back later, and Enel is not dead.
True.
Enel could always return. That is a possibility. I mean, Buggy and Alvida are still after them. Ace lands on Buggy and Alvida's decks, and he's like, oh, I know where Luffy is.
Yeah, but neither of them are uniquely bad at fighting the main character.
That is true.
That's like when you pick your starter in Pokemon, like you pick the fire type starter, and you go fight the grass gym. That grass gym is fucked. No, like it could be hard for everyone else if you start with the fire type. The grass gym's fucked because it's going to be your strongest Pokemon.
Yeah.
That's what Enel is. Enel is the grass type gym leader.
And Luffy is the fire type starter that you picked.
Yeah.
Luffy is your Charmander.
Yeah.
In this situation.
Get fucked, Erica.
So yeah, it's really funny. And then I think the sort of other thing that we're supposed to see throughout this arc is that the Going Merry is falling to pieces across this arc. Like, the Going Merry has dealt with more than that ship was ever intended to. It was supposed to be like a little vacation ship to just sail on a relatively calm sea because the East Blue is the calmest of the four blues. And I mean, actively part of the story through like everywhere they stop is needing to repair the ship. And the Klabautermann that shows up, like the ship spirit. So the Going Merry is dying. Like, she is falling to pieces. And that is a major part of the story. Because she's not doing well.
She ain't making it much longer.
No. But yeah, I mean, I think some of my problem with Skypiea is that it's a short arc, but even with it being a short arc, relatively little happens, I think, that actually matters. Like, I'm going to be honest, most of the stuff that happens in Sky Island is kind of irrelevant, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other than, like, finding the dials and knowing that these islands exist, it's not... To me, it never really felt super important. And I know some people really like Skypiea, and I just don't really see it. So maybe, like, if anyone who's watching this video in the comments, right, if you really like Skypiea, I'd like to hear why, because I don't think that you're wrong on any level. I just want to know what about it makes you really like it, because I'm kind of struggling. Because for me, it's more of a meme than anything, like a meme that carries a bunch of little tidbits that I like.
Now I think you're wrong and you have bad opinions and you should feel bad for. I'm kidding.
I do think it's a little sad. I would have liked to show you maybe just like the Enel fight in like the anime, but maybe I can like find a One Piece episode when we have like an hour or so we can like watch it over.
Maybe.
Yeah, just to show you the fight, because the fight looks pretty good in the anime. Like, it's a fun fight to watch. And One Piece really cuts down all that filler and stuff.
You think Skypiea gets an entire season for the Netflix adaptation?
I mean, here's my breakdown of that, is that Skypiea and Jaya together are a saga, right? And so far we are kind of tracking on a 1-to-1 saga to season ratio. And there's no way that you could combine Skypiea and Jaya with the next 2 arcs in a single season.
But do you think they keep Skypiea and Jaya in, or do you think they fold in elements into the next saga?
I wouldn't be surprised if they took out a chunk of Skypiea and Jaya. If they took out like a lot of the stuff happening in Skypiea and Jaya and had it be like a 1-episode prologue to the arc that comes after it. Or like a 2-episode prologue to the arc that comes after it. But... yeah, I struggle to see how you would make an entire season. Like, looking at the pace that the first season went, I don't genuinely think that there's enough in Skypiea and Jaya to make, like, a really fulfilling first season. Right?
Because, like, in Alabasta and in
Alabasta's
East
got
Blue,
a lot going on.
They, like, stop at different islands. So while it's one saga, you have, like, a lot of, like, smaller... Like, you have a lot of smaller conflicts that work well episodically. Here, this is largely once it gets going.
Also, there's a civil war going on in Alabasta.
Yeah.
Yeah. To do with the Warlord of the Sea and a bunch of other stuff.
Once this gets going, it's just the one large fight scene.
Yeah, so I think potentially what they could do, and this is obviously me talking out my ass, I think that if they made it like an episode for Jaya and an episode for Skypiea, that would work, right? And then the rest of the season would be the next arc. But the next arc is so large and so impactful that I kind of don't want to see them take 2 episodes of time away from the next arc, if that makes sense. Like, I mean, because you'll start reading the next arc soon, right? Because you're going to have to read that one over a longer period of time. Because it's pretty long, and it's made of a lot of smaller arcs, once again. Like, more smaller arcs. But it is a fairly impactful arc. I mean, I personally think that the next arc is going to be really positive for you. Like, I think you're going to really enjoy it, personally. But it's also quite expansive, and I don't really see how they could do it. I don't really see how they could combine the 2 of them in a season. Maybe if you made Giant Skypiea like 1 to 1.5 episodes. Or if you like tacked a little bit of Jaya onto the end of Skypiea. Not Skypiea, but if you like did Alabasta maybe, and then like the last episode of the Alabasta season is like Jaya leading up to going to the Sky Island, and then the first episode of the 3rd season is Skypiea, and then it moves on to the next arc. That I think would maybe be the best breakdown in terms of allowing the most possible space for the next arc and Alabasta, because Alabasta is not the longest arc. I don't think it necessarily needs a full 8 episodes. I think you could do it in 7. Yeah. Yeah. That's where I think I break down on that.
Okay.
Yeah. I think technically there is an abbreviated, I think, movie version of Skypiea, I do believe. So this has been made into an abbreviated movie version, I think. And One Piece is done with their Skypiea as well. So, like, there's ways to watch this to take out a lot of the filler and repetitive bits of the fights if you want to watch it specifically. And if you want to read it, 9 volumes is really not that much. Especially when the first volume is still kind of coming off of Alabasta. And I think the very end of the last...
Oh yeah, it's short, and like even if you're like having my problem where one eye out the other, it goes quickly.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about the pacing that this would be in the live action TV show?
I'm gonna be honest here, like the live action has consistently cut down on time by cutting out the fights or cutting down the fights
Significantly, yeah.
And with this all being one fight scene, this could just be 1 to 2 episodes.
That's what I'm
You
thinking.
just cut out a lot of the elements that were just thrown in there. They don't really do much overarching wise, but we're just kind of like, this is this group of people that this person's fighting.
Yeah, I could genuinely see all of Jaya up to them getting launched up as one episode.
Yeah.
And then just the rest of Skypiea as a second episode.
Yeah. Which is a little... It's weird to think about, but that's about, like, for being the shortest arc, it is somehow the one that feels most bloated.
I think the irony is there might be, because I'm looking at the arcs coming up, right? So Water 7's our next one. That's actually going to be pretty fucking long, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be about 50 chapters longer than this. But there is actually a shorter arc coming up. So right after we do the Water 7, we've got Thriller Bark, right? Thriller Bark's actually shorter. Thriller Bark is only about 50 chapters total for the whole arc.
Nifty.
In the manga. So you're going to get that one in a little while, and that's going to be even fucking shorter. And I also have generally not as much love for Thriller Bark.
But let me put it this way. There were times when I was watching the anime where I was like, it feels like these fight scenes are going on too long. I don't think I've had that criticism about the manga at all up to this point. This felt like I was watching the anime.
It's a lot of fight scene. It's a lot of fight scene. You can't really deny that. And we don't really meet a whole lot of, like, obviously, I mean, the thing with the One Piece is, like, Oda's gonna show us a couple of the characters that we met in Skypiea again and again, because they'll get news about the bounties. So, like, we'll briefly see in those little, like, beginning of chapter images some of these characters. But for the most part, there's only 2 characters in this arc that are going to reappear in the story actively at a later point. One of them is going to appear a lot sooner and is going to be a much bigger problem. The other one is going to, like, guest star again, I think, post time skip. One will appear pre-time skip and then continue to appear, and the other one will appear post time skip for a single arc, I do believe, is how that's going to break down. I think that adds up, because it's just the 2 characters. Yeah. So we're also getting the least recurring characters, because we will see Vivi and her father again multiple times.
Oh, I assume.
We will see Ace again multiple times from Alabasta. I mean, we literally saw Ace once this time. I'm counting him as a holdover from Alabasta, though, in this case, so he's not one of my 2 that we're going to see again. Actually, no, because if we count the meeting between Shanks and Whitebeard, we're going to see 4 characters recurringly, because Shanks and Whitebeard are going to come back, you know? And then 2 other characters, and I'm not going to spoil who they are for you. But I know who they are, and I'm sure people online watching this know who they are. But yeah, so there are plenty of characters from Alabasta that we're going to see again. Some very interesting characters from Alabasta that we're going to see again in the current arc that's ongoing that I never thought would be coming back. 1,000 episodes later, Nick Nack.
Here's a question. Do you want me ranking the arcs as we go video by video? Or do you want me to hold off until, like, we're done with the pre-time skip before we, like, do, like, a tier list or something of them?
No, I think I'd like to hear as you go.
Okay.
Because we'll do a tier list at the end when we get to the end of the pre-time skip. But I'd also like to hear as you go, because right now you're looking at... Well, so right now, if you go by the sagas, right, we're only looking at 3, right? So you've got East Blue, Alabasta, and Sky Island.
So it's probably not a surprise that, Alabasta's first, East Blue second, Sky Island third.
Yeah. No, fully.
I figure like now is the best time to ask about that though, because I'm sure it'll become a lot less clear as we go to the next few arcs.
Yeah. Because I've got a theory as to what I think your favorite arcs are going to be once we hit the end of the post-war section. But it's going to be interesting to see if it's confirmed, because I do have a going theory as to what I think your arc ranking would be, and I'm very interested to see it.
Create like a slideshow where you have me customize my ranking, and then on the next what you thought my ranking was going to be.
I might. I'll have to write mine down now so that I keep it in mind and don't like put it aside and forget it. So yeah, I think I will do that because I do have a theory. So is there anything that you were like curious about or want to question or like bring up to discuss in specific?
Not really. I think I'm getting a good gauge on One Piece as a setting. There's not much I have to say on it or much to question about it. This was I take it as it comes.
That's fair. And to be fair, there's some stuff that you might be interested in, but it'll probably get explained later. And if you were to ask me right now, it'd be a spoiler. Yeah.
Like I'm in it at this point. I'm in it for the long haul. I think.
I mean, it's much easier to read it than it is to watch it. I mean, at this point. Because you got through that in like 2 days after you started reading it? Yeah. As opposed to it would have taken like 2 weeks to watch the anime, and that would have been if you were watching multiple episodes a night every night.
Forgetting that, if we're watching it for the channel, it's taking more than 2 weeks. It's probably taking 2 years of you constantly submitting.
Yeah, so I think it's a bit unfortunate. I think that I was kind of hoping that maybe upon a reread, I'd find some redeeming qualities in this arc.
Similar to how you on the rewatch found a lot more redeeming qualities about, what was it, in Fairy Tail?
Oh, Daedalus.
Yeah.
But I just don't think I can. I think I have the same opinion as I did before, maybe with just a bit more nostalgia thrown in. Like, I like seeing some of the characters that aren't really a part of Enel or Skypiea. They're just outside of it that I like in general. And that's kind of it. I mean, that's all. That's really my general opinion on this arc is just, yay, I get to see Doflamingo and Whitebeard and Shanks and Ace. I don't really think, yay, I get to see Enel. He's a meme. He's funny, but it's a one-trick pony. And it is a very big fight arc. The one thing is, so I've had Cece on a few times to discuss. I think you guys probably saw Cece in a few episodes a couple seasons ago. But Cece is currently watching through all of One Piece for me. I managed to persuade her to watch all of One Piece all the way through for me. And she is forging ahead. I think she's already on Thriller Bark. Like, she's moving into Thriller Bark and is about to hit post-war.
Man, so you must have started this like 3 years ago.
So I started this like a year ago. Nah, Cece's just been real industrious. Cece hated Enel. She thought it was like in the funniest way of hate possible. Not like vitriolic hate, but just like, why the fuck? Like, her reaction to Enel was very funny because she was watching it and she was like, what the fuck? So, I think it'll be interesting. Maybe if I can plan my timings right, it might be fun because you will catch up to where she is if we keep going through this. Probably at the end of the pre-time skip. It'd be funny to have her on, maybe for a section of that episode, because she'll be up to the time skip at that point.
Get us in together at the end, like basically at the time skip.
At the halfway, yeah. And discuss.
You'd have to tell her to stop at the time skip though if she hits that before us.
No, she just wouldn't talk about what's after that if she goes a little ahead, because she's watching more consistently. Because whenever she has time, she just.
Whereas
turns
I'm
it
reading
on.
this largely when we're going on breaks, or this arc I didn't read so much on a break. But
yeah, you're not going to be able to do that with Water 7. You're going to need to maybe plan out some time, maybe read it like arc by arc or something. I have no clue what's coming up next on Off the Shelf. I have no clue.
I actually do, because I have been trying to plug away at this shit in order.
Yeah. Oh, is that in order as to what it's scheduled to go up? Huh.
In order, the next thing to go up should be Pokemon, actually.
Okay, in theory it'll be Pokemon, and then there's
this has been like the daunting mountain in front of me. One Piece
and then
Pokemon at a surprisingly comparable length.
Yeah.
Actually, how many volumes there is One Piece?
9.
Pokemon is, I think, at the exact same number.
Yeah. So like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.